Welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom, and we're broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in downtown Corning. Today on the program, we'll be speaking with former Congressman Tom Reed. He's going to join us and fill us in how he's doing after his 12 years in Congress. We'll be talking to him. And on tomorrow's program, we'll be talking to State Senator Tom O'Mara. So Tom and Tom today and tomorrow. As always, you can contact me with questions for our guests or for suggestions for interviews or anything that you would like to just reach out to me about, especially topics. I know we've been receiving, and I mentioned quite a few yesterday. I don't know if we'll have time to get to a few of them today, but we've been receiving some great questions, some great comments about stories that we've had. And speaking of stories that we've had, we have an update on the budget. There could be some progress. That's the New York State budget, by the way. There could be some, progress on bail reform. We'll tell you what we know, but this is a problem when everything's done behind closed doors. It's a lot of people speaking on anonymity. So we'll discuss as much as we possibly can. As a rule, I've stated from the beginning, we're trying to bring you only the news that is hard-hitting, that affects you, and that's until I did show prep this morning and found the story. And because television affords me something radio could not, I can actually show you this picture. Again, I am not suggesting in any way this affects your life one way or the other, but you got to see this kid. Eric Kilburn. Young Eric is a high school freshman, just 14 years old. And why do you see this? He had to get fitted for size 23 shoes to help him play football. Now, if you read the article, it's really he just needs shoes at this point. Record-breaking 23 size shoe for 14-year-old Eric. I know it's not hard-hitting news, but the pictures were so stunning. Look at this. 14 years old. His nickname, Big E. He currently plays defensive tackle without cleats. Essentially, Under Armour finally did it, but they were having trouble finding anyone that would even take on the monumental challenge of putting shoes on Eric's feet. One more time, I just thought the pictures, he looks like a giant amongst his fellow teammates and the opposing team. All right, I know, I said only hard-hitting news, but I had to show you that picture. We're going to take a short break. We have budget discussions to talk about. Some other stories that relate to past conversations that we've had, and we've had wonderful conversations. I'll give you an update on some other interviews that we'll have next week, and towards the end of next week specifically. So make sure you stay tuned for that. We have a couple of announcements that we'll be making as well. But let's take that short break right off the jump, and then we'll get back. Now that we've done some housekeeping, we will get back with all the stories, the actual big stories. I guess technically, Eric, there is a big story. That's kind of a corny pun, but we'll take this short break, and then we'll be back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Stay with us. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, as I mentioned. Former Congressman Tom Reed will be joining us in just a little bit. So let's take a look. And first of all, here's the contact if you have any last-minute questions for the former congressman. We've been talking a lot about the budget proposals out of Albany. And yesterday we mentioned on the program, if we do get any headway on bail reform, what is the trade-off? And that's a major concern. Because what we have now is, with the supermajority, it's really Democrats negotiating with Democrats. The farthest left with the left fighting back and forth for a little bit of ground. So Politico broke last night, I believe it was, it doesn't have the timestamp on it, that the Assembly has offered a bail change proposal at the budget talks. Now, if you recall, we've said it with numerous guests and just in general in our talks, that what Governor Hochul proposed was not a major change. It was a step in the right direction, but I think, and I can't remember who exactly said it, or I would quote them, but it's just inches. It's not miles. It's not a major overhaul. But coming out of the AP, I believe or Politico, excuse me, may have been the one that broke that story yesterday. But as the New York Post writes, that it does tweak bail reform ahead of the budget deadline. Now, if you're not aware, the budget deadline is April 1st. There's a lot of speculation about if it'll be on time. It doesn't seem like it'll be on time, but crazier things have happened. Under the proposed changes, judges would no longer have to give criminal defendants the least restrictive conditions ahead of their trials. At least, and here we go, at least for some crimes. This again this is from the New York Post, but Politico finding this out last night. A political consultant, Hank Scheinkopf, said, "It's true, it's a very big deal. Hasty is telling the progressives to be quiet while he changes a law that they fought for." And that's some of this infighting that we're seeing. He's essentially saying to the far left, let me do this one. Even though you guys fought hard for this bail reform, let me basically tweak it. For what? What is the goal? That's something that we'll have to keep a close eye on, because what is the trade-off? What is Hochul or whoever offering to get this bail reform change in? Because Hochul has made this kind of a sticking point and I think she's politically smart on that. She's looking at the polls and saying, why did Zeldin do so well in such a heavy Democrat state? What are the polls saying? And of course, time after time, Democrats, Republicans alike are saying that crime is a major concern and a major issue in the state. And we know it doesn't take a lot of studying to realize when you coddle the criminals and tie the hands of the police with bail reform, that's going to be a contributing factor, a major contributing factor to crime rates and the increase that we're seeing. Now, another source, and again, Politico, New York Post doing the best that they can here, but everything, when you negotiate behind closed doors, everything becomes an anonymous source, essentially. Here's a quote that I had mentioned. Another source privy to the insider information here said that Hasty told his Democrat supermajority that any progress on bail could only be measured in, quote, inches. Now, it was reported by City and State New York that representatives actually walked out of a meeting with Hochul's administration over this issue of bail reform. It's highly unlikely that the Assembly will suddenly flip-flop on decades of strongly held beliefs about criminal justice reform, which means it's very likely, if these reports are true, there is nuance in the Assembly's position. Yeah, nuance, a way that maybe Hochul saves a little face, but they don't either lose anything, ultimately, we assume gaining. Negotiations, right? That's what I think we have to keep the closest eye on, and that's what the political consultant Scheinkopf said. The question is, what did the anti-cop, pro-bail reform progressives get in return, and how much will it cost struggling and frightened New York? And that's a great way to put it, and that's what our major concern is here. What was the trade-off? What is it going to cost us New Yorkers? Is it financial? Most likely. Is it another way to, again, help criminals increase the crime rates, increase the violence? Because there's a reason why a group that fought so hard for this sounds as if, anyway, they're willing to cave on the issue. Even when I say cave, that's a strong word, give in even a little bit on this. So that's a quick update. We have a little bit more on it, so stay with us. We do have to take a short break. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. We have former Congressman Tom Reed coming up in just a little bit. Stay with us. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. We're talking bail reform. We're talking the budgets. Coming up in a little bit, we'll have former Congressman Tom Reed as our guest. Back quickly to bail reform, the New York Post editorial board saying finally exercising some common sense. I would say let's not knee-jerk on this. The Post may be hoping for something that may not ultimately come to fruition. But the legislature is considering adopting Governor Hochul's proposal to allow judges to have some discretion, notice that word, some discretion, for assigning bail. this is, and it highlights in this article, this is a minor change. But sadly, there's been such, well, it goes back to the supermajority, but there's been no give or take on this. So even this little minute change is bigger than I guess many of us would even have expected. Even if you oppose bail, in most cases, you have to admit releasing people who are committing the same crimes again and again is insanity. The Post writes, absolutely. And it just, we talked about it with Steuben County District Attorney Brooks Baker yesterday. Look at how many victims did not need to be victims because of this failed law that has hurt our state so much. Forcing judges to impose the least restrictive standard in all cases, regardless of circumstances or criminal record, is rigid and unfair. It is rigid and as unfair as mandatory minimums were. Yet progressives appear immune to common sense. That's what the Post writes. But there is the attitude that we are not going to budge on this at all. And they live in a bubble in Albany, because you can see poll after poll, people after people stop you on the street talking to you about it. Isn't this just a boneheaded thing? Isn't this dangerous? Of course it is. That's why we've seen such an increase in crime. We've seen an increase, tragically, of overdoses. This all ties in together. People not getting the help that they need. I saw a piece that I don't have up on the screen right here, but that the FDA has approved over-the-counter Narcan. So now you can get it over the counter. What Narcan is, if you're not familiar, it's to stop an overdose while it's happening, to save lives. It's great, but the fact that we have it over the counter now, people are handing it out almost like we were handed masks at the beginning of COVID. That's a troubling sign of where we are in society. Again, I don't want to keep mentioning the article that I brought to you Monday, but that the polls are showing that people who have that don't have the importance they used to when it comes to patriotism, faith, community. They don't put their beliefs or their importance there. And this all ties into one bigger destructive powder keg, if you will, of where society is headed at large. But back to the budget, because that all does tie in. The Post saying that, this is a step in the right direction. And they say, do the right things, please. Well, there's two major issues. Well, there's many more, but charter schools and bail reform. And again, poll after poll shows that people are supportive of charter schools and people are supportive of changes to bail reform. But in Albany, they've drawn such a hardline stance that they can't give. And that's what concerns me, and that's why I'm glad the New York Post highlighted it. What are the progressive left in Albany giving? Let me reword that. What are they getting for giving the changes on bail reform? So that's what time will tell. But again, this is what happens when all negotiations are essentially in a smoke-filled room. There's people behind the scenes figuring out everything that our Assembly, our Senate should be doing. It's just a powerful few that get to decide this all and what will ultimately be in the budget. I do hope that some changes are made. I'm not going to hold my breath, but even minor changes is a step in the right direction until hopefully, I don't know if this is ever possible, we can win, the Republican Party can win some form of power back. Right now, the Democrats hold a supermajority, and that's why whatever their wish list is, they ultimately end up getting. So, as you saw, we just had a wave. All right. Contact me if you're new to the program. That's just one of the fun ways we try to interact with the community, because we are stressing community here. No matter what the polls say, we still believe in building a stronger community, and that's what this show is all about. Hearing from you, waving when you walk by here on Market Street, looking into the Hesselson studio. That's what it's ultimately all about. So we have to take another short break, and when we come back, we're going to have former Congressman Tom Reed in on the program. That's going to be a hard habit to break, to keep saying Congressman, but Tom Reed's going to join us tomorrow on the program. State Senator Tom O'Mara, will discuss with him exactly what's going on with the budgets, what he knows, what he sees, the good, the bad, and the ugly. That will be tomorrow, so get your questions there to our contact information that you see on your screen. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. This is the M.A. Neal Financial Services interview, and we're broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. We're going to go to our Zoom. Oops. Uh-oh. I just did something, Tom. I was doing so good. Hold on. I got to get my Zoom page up. I'm learning on the go. Former Congressman Tom Reed is our guest. Tom, it's so good to see you.
It's great to be with you, Frank, and congratulations on Big Fox and hitting the big time, going from radio to TV.
Look at this.
I'm so proud of you, and
Oh,
I'm so glad to see this.
Thank you. And a lot has changed, so we got to talk about all of it. Big announcement. Congratulations on the new law firm.
Oh, I appreciate that. Yes, we in this next chapter, I'm working in D.C., working right here, calling you from D.C. today, and working with Charlie Black and Prime Policy Group, doing good government work, but at the same time, partnered up with my former chief of staff, as well as my first boss, who hired me in a law firm up in Rochester, New York, and started Rizzo, Reed & O'Brien, R2O Law.
I like it.
Up in Rochester, in Pittsford. So we're excited about the opportunities that represents for this next chapter also.
Wow. So you've stayed busy. You're not retired. That's for sure.
No, we're not retired. Like I said when I left, the opportunities that I have to pursue here were just extraordinary. It's the primary reason I left early was to move to this next chapter quicker, because we're right in the middle of so many different things with our political consulting business that we have, as well as this Prime Policy Group full-time job, plus adding to it now the law firm. Allows us to continue to represent people in Western New York and in the area. So if anyone needs any legal need, R2O Law, Rizzo, Reed & O'Brien.
There you go.
We're open for business, and we're here to serve you.
I love it. And we're coming up very quickly. It's hard to believe, but on presidential elections, what are you seeing? Is it from our part, from the Republican Party? Who do you think are the lead dogs in this, and what do you think when the smoke clears, who it'll ultimately be?
Well, obviously, my crystal ball is like everyone else's. Unsure right now, but I will say President Trump is obviously, you look at the numbers, he's locked down that portion of the primary electorate that puts him in a position to be the nominee. However, there are folks out there. We have a couple that have already declared, in the sense of Nicole Haley and the others who are out there, and they're interested in it. And obviously, for all intents and purposes, Ron DeSantis is someone who hasn't declared, but in my mind has.
He's making a trip to Israel soon. I mean, there's no doubt, right?
Exactly. So, but I think this is going to present a unique opportunity for, I think, some inspiring new candidates to emerge. So stay tuned on this. I think it's too early to tell who exactly is going to run away with the Republican nomination. And I'll also tell you here on the Democratic side, what they don't speak, but they on the record, but behind the scenes, the general joke in D.C. is everybody wants President Biden not to run and to replace him, but no one will say it publicly.
Oh, sure.
And no one will say it to his face.
Well,
and that's a real problem. That's the lack of courage. I'm just looking for a candidate who's going to step up, be straight with the American people, and be accountable and be responsible and lead and start leading again, not play politics 24/7 by pandering to the extremes.
I agree. I mean, if you look at that tragedy in Nashville, the way that President Biden has responded to that, sometimes joking before he makes a comment, everything seems to be in this country right now to divide us even further with the rhetoric.
Yeah, absolutely. And Frank, you got to ask the question, where's that coming from? Not only is that internally within the nation, but there's outside forces. China, do not underestimate the power of the Chinese to infiltrate our country right now to weaken us. Their whole vision, and they declare it openly. I encourage people, take a look at the 5,000-word statement that Beijing and Russia issued right before the Beijing Olympics. They've declared China is going to be the world leader. They're going to replace America as controlling the policies of the world. And I will tell you, that's dangerous. And this is all playing into their 100-year plan. And they're using it day in and day out. And this division that we're playing into as Americans is helping their cause more than anything else that they could wish for.
When you saw the visit to Russia, and the headlines were reading essentially China acting as if they're superpower or acting as world leaders, and that's exactly what they want.
It's exactly what they want. And I went to, right after I left Congress, I was at an event in Watkins Glen, and Ted Marks hosted me over there. You know Ted
Yeah, okay.
Marks, very leader in our community. And I addressed the Rotary Club, and I said, this is exactly where this is going, everyone. You need to be aware of this. You need to be what the motivation is. And they're going to use the Ukraine situation to be a responsible leader. They're going to use that to their advantage. Russia's an ally of theirs. They're communicating daily. And they're going to use these chips on the table to try to split us both domestically within our borders, but also internationally. And it's time for America to wake up. This is one of those things that I spoke on the floor when I left Congress. That is the real threats that are coming to the future of America that are ripening and happening as we speak. And that's why we need leadership. That's why we need leadership in Washington, D.C., not politicians. We need people that will speak the truth. And it's going to be an Abraham Lincoln, FDR, it's going to be a Ronald Reagan type of moment. That is ripening as we speak.
Why do you think there isn't anyone in leadership really speaking out? Is it a fear of the supply chain? Is it a fear of how really much power China has over us right now?
Correct.
Yeah.
It absolutely has a lot to do with that. You don't want to upset the apple cart that's feeding you, so to speak, and also that people are making a ton of money off of. You have to keep that in mind. And so, it harkens to the day. There's a movie maybe to put it in context. If you look at the Churchill movie, there's a famous scene or a very impactful scene where Winston Churchill's talking about how Chamberlain was trying to force him to cut a deal, to say, why don't we cut a deal with Germany, Hitler? And one of the things he said is, he said, well, you know what? A lot of people in the country of England who are established, who have business relationships, who have wealth, they're going to be just fine on the other side of this. That's where they want to go because they want to keep that operation intact. And it's almost a similar situation, right? It's people who have made their bet that, you know what, we're going to work with this adversary in China. We're going to have relationships with this adversary in China. And, oh, by the way, as China replaces us, we're going to be their friends, not their enemy. And so it's all about self-interest preservation. And that is one of the things I'm keeping an eye on for the future of the country, is that we have to, as a nation, as individuals, wake up and make sure that we side with freedom, democracy, and stand up to this beast that is coming to a head.
And unfortunately, in the interest of money, it seems as if we started selling out to China quite some time ago. So is it too far gone at this point?
China clearly has said, if you read those public statements, that they have America in checkmate.
Yeah.
I believe they have us in check. I believe this is a moment that we have to be very serious as a country. We have to unite as citizens, not divide as citizens. And we need to wake up to recognize that common enemy in China is somebody we have to stand up to. And if we don't, their checkmate China position could become the reality very quickly.
Former Congressman Tom Reed is our guest on Frankly Speaking. This is the M.A. Neal Financial Services interview section of the program. Tom, do you ever miss the day-to-day grind in Washington? As a congressman, not the day-to-day grind you have now?
It's a day-to-day grind. I'm spending pretty much Tuesday to Thursday here in Washington, D.C., back home on the weekends with my wife. And, the grind is the grind.
Yeah.
I don't miss that per se, but I do miss the institution. I do miss the people of the institution. I'm on this ban where I can't talk to my colleagues for 1 year. It's coming to an end here on May 10th. So I can have the handcuffs taken off of me.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to the day to be able to see the people of my colleagues. Now, when I walk through the Capitol, I go into the Capitol. I can go there anytime, being a former member. It's great to see the staffers. It's great to see common faces. And that's what I miss the most. But I don't miss the grind. I don't miss, and being in public office, to all the people that run for public office, I'm just so grateful. Thank you. Thank you for putting your name on the line, so to speak. And I know you just got a new public office in Irwin.
Yeah, councilman.
We need people. We need people to engage, because that's what they want us to do. They want us to disengage. And this is the status quo. This is the Chinese influence. This is the status quo. And what the parties are doing, in my humble opinion, and I'm trying to do it in the Republican Party, say, don't do this. They're trying to just talk to the small extreme faction of the party and not listen to the majority of us. The majority of us that are saying, you know what, we're with you. We're with you 90% of the time, and we want you to stand up, but don't embrace extremism. Don't embrace this ultra faction of the parties, both Republican and Democrat, and try to, they're actually actively trying to have people disengage from the voting process. It's part of the calculation of trying to win elections in 2023, and it's an effort that is often done. And it's also done across party lines. As you saw, Democrats trying to take, trying to attack Republicans or promote Republicans. They thought they had a better shot of winning in the general election. That is the level of politics that we're at right now. These guys are all worried about their own self-interest and their own, their own territory, that they're not thinking about country first.
And perfect for your point there. I don't know if you saw the poll recently, and I can't remember who released it, but the people have essentially lost faith in their communities, lost faith in religion, lost faith in pretty much everything that defined America. And it plummeted almost in half in some of the categories. And it just seems like a larger picture to what you're saying is people don't go out and run for office, or they don't even go out bother to vote. It's like they've given up on this country, and that's heartbreaking and terrifying.
It's terrifying. It's heartbreaking. We love this country. You and I know, are patriots. We believe in America. America needs to be here, and it needs to be strong. And this is exactly the division, both the status quo domestically of inside D.C. wanting to keep this power structure that they've built over decades. They want to protect that. But also don't underestimate, like I said, these outside influencers, these adversaries in China, primarily, that want America to be secondary, so that they, China and others, can rule the world in a way that you don't want to see that picture. That picture is not a good picture for freedom, for democracy, and for the well-being of the world.
Well, and think about whether it's the media or even just pop culture, the all-out attack on patriotism. You're almost laughed at if you fly a flag. The all-out attack on Christians. Christians are most of the time the bad guys in movies and TV now. So no wonder some people are saying, "Never mind, I don't want to be uncool."
I totally agree with you. It's an attack on the fundamentals of America that has protected us and made the world so much better. We have our warts. We're not a perfect union, but we are always in search of a more perfect union, because our fundamentals is what needs to be spread across the world and also domestically, to take care of people in a better way. And when they attack your patriotism, when they attack your spiritualism, your higher power, our belief in God, we are a God-fearing country, and rightfully so. God has given us divine protection, and I will tell you that we turn on him or her, whatever pronoun you want to use, I guess. But when you turn on God, you are going down a path that's very dangerous, because then the core of who we are as a people starts to disintegrate.
Just look throughout history if you really want to see what happens to a country that turns their back on God.
Amen, Frank. And that is also, when you say, I so appreciate you say, look at history. America's been challenged before. We're living in this moment, and it's tough to see because we're so close to it. But if you look at America's challenges, and I'm getting goosebumps, even just saying it, you think about the Civil War, you think about the Civil Rights Movement, you think about these periods of time, World War II, World War I, where the heart of America was tested. We answered the call. Because Ronald Reagan, he tapped into our better angels. He tapped into that vision of America that's a shining beacon on a hill. It's the same thing with Abraham Lincoln. I'm a big Abraham Lincoln fan. I was just with John Meacham talking to him about Abraham Lincoln, he wrote a biography on Abraham Lincoln. And that's the type of leadership, that's the type of vision that we need, because there's a lot of potential individuals out there, let's say, that want to continue to push fear. They want to demigod America, and they don't want to use the power of inspiration to unite us and to make sure we stand up as that shining beacon on a hill that Ronald Reagan speaks about.
And what do you think the biggest obstacle is to uniting us as a country? Is it the constant push of people that benefit off of us being divided?
I think it has a lot to do with it. I think it's the organized effort
Mhm.
to cause this, but I think it's also just it can be human nature.
Yeah.
This is tough. It's tough to run for public office.
Mhm.
It's tough to get engaged. It's tough to stand up and challenge people in this cancel culture type
Yes.
of environment and say, you know what, I'm not. I hear you. I respect you. You can spit on me. You can yell at me, but I'm going to stay here. I'm
Mhm.
going to stay in the room. And that's what we did at the Problem Solvers Caucus. That's what I did in Congress. That's why I was a proud Republican in the room to spread our ideology and spread our beliefs. But I was not weak in the sense of, okay, I better keep my head down and run
Right.
away. You have to stay in the room. You have to do the hard work of being passionate but respectful, and being also come from a position of love in regards to your fellow man in America, and say, you know what, you can do this to me. I'm working right now with Dr. Ben Chavis, who was there with Martin Luther King right at the beginning.
Yeah.
And Martin Luther King, he had all his warts and things of that nature, but Martin Luther King was onto something. When you saw him unite the country for the African American rightful cause for civil justice, and stand there
Mhm.
and take the beatings, to take the attacks, the leadership we need, and that's the kind of leadership that needs to be inspired, so that
Yeah.
Americans know it's okay. It's okay to have civil disobedience, but it's not okay to go to violence.
Mhm.
It's okay to stand up for what you believe in. Take the hits, take the physical attacks, the financial attacks, the emotional attacks, but stay in the room.
And it scares
And
me.
it's hard work.
It is, and it scares me that now it's really the violent protests that are encouraged by the media and by those that, again, have something to gain from whatever the topic is.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree. You cannot fan the flames of hatred and anger and violence
No.
without having serious repercussions to our society, to our country. What we need are leaders, and that's who I'm associating with. That's who I'm supporting. That's the continuation of my mission as I ran and served in Congress, is embracing those leaders who have that type of inspirational influence and belief structure and fortitude.
Yes.
It takes a lot of chutzpah to do this. It takes a lot of understanding who you are, and I'll tell you, that's the people that we should be promoting, should be celebrating in America as we speak.
And when you think about it, Tom, back to your point, think of the town halls that you had where you had amazing conversations with people, but you had times where you had to put up with some pretty rough stuff.
When you have a 4-year-old
Yeah.
on the shoulder of her father encouraged to spit on you,
Yeah.
because they're that close to you, and that's how they were going to exercise their fundamental rights of expression. That's tough to take.
Yeah.
That is tough not to look that individual in the eye. And that's the one time I really did take it to a level where I was like, I am now going to interject myself
Yeah.
into your upbringing of your child and say, you know what, shame on you.
Yeah.
Damn you. Unacceptable. That 4-year-old, you are contaminating that mind. That is not acceptable. Type of behavior, and we did that those town halls because I believed in them. It wasn't a political talking point. It wasn't a political opportunity.
Right.
It was about having democracy in live fashion, and hopefully we send a message, and hopefully other people who have seen it are inspired to do the same. And it happens around our dinner tables. It doesn't have to be a public town hall meeting. Everyone's like, oh, I'm not going to talk politics at the dinner table at Thanksgiving or whatever holiday have you. But you know what? Maybe we should a little bit more. And the ones that come in there with, this mindset that we're going to shut you down and not allow you to express your beliefs, stand up to them.
Yeah.
Stand up to them and stand up for what you believe in, and say, okay, if I'm wrong, tell me why I'm wrong. Because it'll make you better. It'll make you stronger. And we all need to do it. We all need to do it because this cancel culture is part of the tools in the toolbox
Yes.
to bring us down.
If we are already self-censoring, they've won, because isn't that what they ultimately wanted? So if you are not willing to put your beliefs out there, then they've essentially censored you and you've let them.
Correct. That's exactly part of the process. That's how they shut down America Freedom. They scare you. They intimidate you. They attack you, and that we can't have.
No.
And I believe in America. I believe at the end of the day we will win this battle. We will survive this test again, like we have historically. But it's going to take a lot of work, but it's not a given. It's not a given that we're going to survive and come out on the other end. That's why you need to do the work. That's why, I encourage people, run for office. If I can help, I'm here, I'm available. Reach out to us, participate in your show.
Yes.
Spread your show.
It's the town hall of the airwaves, Tom.
Yeah, and let's get Frankie Acom to go national. Let's get Frank Acom.
Hey, I'm good right here on Corning for the time being. Let me get better at this, Tom. But you're right. We have to rise to the occasion. And I think we've done that historically as a country. But now we have to do it again. That's all. We have to do the tough work.
We have to do the tough work. It's so important. And, we have a lot of problems in the country.
Sure.
Washington, D.C. right now, we're having these battles, debt ceiling, these political issues that are coming down the pipeline, and they all have to be accomplished, but they won't be accomplished unless the people are there, and the vast majority of people need to engage so that they know, these elected officials know they're on the right side of the issues, and to tackle these problems and to solve these problems. Because if only 10% of the electorate, that's really where they're driving the democracy to, so that only 10% of Americans participate in democracy. That's where they want to get to. It's the 80%, it's the 90% that have to stay engaged. And if we only get half of that 90%, we will actually be the governing voice. We will be the ones that will demand these elected officials to do this, or they'll be held accountable. And if we do that, the elected officials will rise to the occasion, and they will answer that demand.
Tom, just before we go, one last question. When you look back at all your time in Washington, what was your proudest accomplishment or accomplishments?
I got to say the Problem Solvers Caucus.
Yeah.
It's having an institutional effect. It's changing Washington, D.C. from within. We are now a force when it comes to legislative vehicles, both in the House and Senate, because we developed our friendship with 20 senators, where I can pick up the phone and talk to them anytime I want, so to speak. That type of relationship has changed the calculation. So that to me is by far the proudest legacy. But it boils down to, I still get stopped, right?
I'm sure.
I still get stopped on the street.
Yeah.
And people are like, you don't even know what you did, but you gave a tour, as simple as a tour, a personal tour to my grandchild. This just happened. And you inspired her to go to college and study politics. That. Yeah. How can you not be proud of that? I'm also getting chills thinking about that. I mean, you put a child on a path who is now an adult. Can't believe 12 years is 5. Who's now chose their life passion because of a hour I spent with them. In Washington, D.C., in the Capitol building on the floor of the House. That type of return on my hour investment, I'm so grateful. And I hear stories like that so much. So the legislative stuff, the manufacturing bill we did,
that was great.
The tax reform that I was involved with, those are, I was at the cutting edge. I was cutting deals in a gas station parking lot driving home from Washington, D.C. When we got COVID relief negotiated. I had the president on the phone. I had Senate leaders and the House leaders on the phone cutting those deals.
Do you hear that? Is it you? Is that me?
I don't know if it's me or you, but look at that, the technical things that you're learning as you go live on TV.
Yeah, look at that. There we go. I guess I have to have Do Not Disturb. But that's okay, Tom. I had to go to a break here anyway, so I can't thank you enough. We're learning. I'm a one-man show, Tom. I'm just pushing all the buttons.
Well, you do a great job at it, and you cut your teeth at radio. It's the same type of button. It's a different media.
That's it. Tom, thanks so much for being on the show. I hope we can do this again soon.
Love to do it anytime you want to, Frank, and I'm proud of you, and I'm proud of you running for office and becoming an elected official, and just proud of the team. I've seen a lot of the team who have evolved, and you're part of that. And whatever I can do to help, I'm always here. But most importantly, still carrying on the mission.
All right, great. Thanks, Tom. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, take care, Frank.
We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking. Stay with us. Caught me taking a sip of water there. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking. We're going to have to take a short break here in just a second, but I want to thank former Congressman Tom Reed for being our guest. That was a lot of fun. I forgot to mention at the beginning of the show, but he hinted towards it in full disclosure. I worked for Tom as his communications director right at the end of his time in office. So it was fun to catch up there, and we're going to have him on again soon, because I've been mentioning the China issue, and I'm glad that he could reiterate it, especially what he's seeing in Washington behind the scenes, because I think that's a major issue that we, unfortunately, as a country have overlooked for so long. So if you heard that noise, I'm not sure if you heard that during the interview. I know I could, but what that is was a call number there, and I forgot to put it on mute. Yeah, we don't take live calls. If you're new to the program, we don't take live calls, but you can leave a voicemail, and I can later read on the air what you said, or play the audio from that later, though. It would be the next day. But questions, those type of things, please send ahead of time before the guest comes on. No problem there. We're learning on the go, but I appreciate everybody who's reached out and contacted us. So let's take another short break, and then when we come back, we'll be all caught up, and we'll get to the last few issues of the day. Stay with us. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. I have one last topic we're going to bring up. Unfortunately, I ran so late with a former congressman that I do have to take a short break coming up here very quickly. Getting the format situated, and I apologize over that. I just ran long, and I should have taken a break, but I got lost in the important conversation that Tom and I were having. So we're going to take that short break. Then we're going to wrap up and get hopefully a little bit more in. So stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. We just have a moment. I'm sorry I just ran so late with a former congressman. Thank you to Tom Reed for being on the program. This is something that I hope we can discuss in the future. We're 3 years into COVID. We talked about this just the other day, and yet New York leaders have still not been held accountable for the disastrous, deadly decisions that they made putting patients into nursing homes, people with COVID into nursing homes. It's something that, if for nothing else, we have to do the research on, so we know, God forbid, something happens in the future, that we are prepared. Hopefully we'll talk more about that tomorrow. The budgets, Senator Tom O'Mara will join us, weigh in on what's happening in Albany. Have a great day, everyone. Sorry we ran long, but I hope that you'll join us at 7 a.m. tomorrow for Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox, broadcasting from the Hesselson studio.